Hi, I'm Dani Tan, the founder of She Belongs Here and leadership coach, as well as podcast host of You're Overqualified. I'm here because I'm always going to give you that loving push and reminder that yes, you are overqualified and you absolutely belong here. I am first gen. I'm Asian Latina. I'm Puerto Rican Filipino with Chinese roots. And I'm a former VP of a billion-dollar organization who went from being a sample coordinator to a VP in 11 years with 11 promotions and 5 career pivots, PR, sales, merchandising, e-commerce, you name it. And I went and left it all to do this full time because I truly do believe that if you have been wondering if you belong in that room, if you are qualified, I want to remind you that you are. I understand that from personal experience and what that feels like, which is why I do the work that I do. I work with women who are amazing. They are crushing it at execution, but then they suddenly realize there's a tipping point that nobody has given them the plan, the manual of what it really takes to manage people, influence, negotiate, anything when it comes to those pieces within our careers. And so that's where I come in. We work on the stuff that no one prepares you for, the promotion conversation, the difficult manager, the moment that you're going from the best executor to being told you need to be more strategic, but you don't even know what that actually means. So just know that that's what we will talk about and more. And if you're ever curious about what it's like to work together one-on-one, you can go to my website at danitan.com, DANITAN.com, book a discovery call with me, and we'll talk about your goals, where you're stuck, what support you're looking for, and what it's like to work together to achieve what it is you want to achieve. But let's dive into today's episode. So today's episode is called The Promotion Questions You're Afraid to Ask Answered. Now, yesterday, I taught a live free training. It was 90 minutes. Honestly, it went a little bit over. And it was a room full of really ambitious, amazing, high achieving women. And every one of them are delivering above their title. And what I was doing within that training was talking about what it entails to be promotion ready, how to get promotion ready within 90 days so you can go ahead and be prepared to land that promotion. This is the questions that they asked me that I answered live on this. And so if any of these are living in your head right now, this one is for you. Grab a notebook, write it down, and we'll talk it through. So the first question, and one of the questions that was asked was, I applied for an internal promotion, but I got denied and they're interviewing people just like me. What am I missing? And so what I ran through live on the call was it's almost never that you're not capable, right? It's typically then positioning and visibility. And so the coaching that I gave was that the first thing I would do would be to run a diagnostic on how did the interviews go that she had internally for this promotion. What did past performance reviews or managers say? And who were the key decision makers in this process? And what are her relationships with them? And so at the time, when it came to her performance reviews, I want to see like what was the feedback that was given? Was it positive? Was there any room for growth? What was her manager's feedback? What is the process for an internal promotion? And who are the key stakeholders that influence getting it approved? And what are her relationships with them? And then that would give me a good diagnostic to see of where she kind of, if it was performance based, if it truly was visibility based, if it was truly relationship based. And then that's how we would form a plan on how to tackle that and understand better of why potentially she was passed over or she was passed over internally and they're looking at external candidates. Now, I've had clients who've come to me who have been passed over for promotions, not just 1 year, but 2 years, multiple years. And I always see that it's important to run this diagnostic to understand you may be an amazing executor. You may be really great at the work that you're doing. You may get really positive feedback. But if the people who are responsible for your promotion do not understand or know the work that you're doing, then a lot of the times it falls flat. Now, you may say, my manager gives me great feedback. A lot of the times when I ran through this in the training, it's not just our manager that's responsible for our promotion. There's multiple layers to it. And so that's the part that I want you to think about. And so a lot of times that comes down to positioning and visibility that is strategic with the right people. And so that's what we talked about on that call. And that's how we figured that part out. Now, the other question that I got was, I'm already delivering at the next level, but my promotions at my company have been paused. Do I wait or do I leave? So this big question of if at my organization, it's been paused for promotions, should I stay and like wait it out and see what happens or do I go? So the first thing I always want to do is collect data first. And I ask the question, has anybody been promoted during the pause? And the answer was yes. And so if yes, then is it really a freeze or is it prioritization? And if that's the case, we have to figure out where you need to be positioned in order to be prioritized. So what we found out within the call and the discovery was that she was told by her manager she has amazing feedback, but that promotions are on pause. But then when I asked her if somebody else had been promoted, she said yes. And she did bring up the conversation. They were in a separate department with a separate manager, but still it's happened since the company-wide pause. And so the things that we talked about on the call would be a couple of things. One, to go back to the manager and understand Is there a timeline for how long this pause is? Is that mean that how long will this be stunted for growth for her next step? And then talking about there is a thing where we have to check our organization's health, its profitability, its hiring, its ability to, take care of you. If you're in an organization or a company that isn't being profitable, that isn't really hiring, that isn't really giving raises, that can cap your growth. And so the thing that's really important to understand is we don't always have to like jump from job to job just to jump from job to job. But what we do need to do is understand in this current season of my life, what is most important for me in my career. And that's what's important. And so, like, knowing that if right now in this season of my life, the most important part is growth of getting to this next title, or the most important thing is salary, or the next important thing is, being able to just have something peaceful and easeful, or it's something that I want to be learning. We have to take into account what is important to us in this current season because it changes every year and as we evolve and grow. And is this organization and is this role in alignment with what that is? And so we have to check the health of the organization and see, does that make sense for what it is that you want to do? If they are, maybe not doing well financially, they're not growing, that will potentially quietly cap your growth. And you have to decide, are you okay with that? So the way we figure that out is like one, understanding what is already happening within the organization, talking to our manager to get clarity on that. And then on top of all of that, if we feel like we are doing all of that and we're waiting to hear back, then the next piece is going to be doing what I like to call, I run a parallel path. So a parallel path is when we pursue what's happening internally for promotions, but we also prepare to make a move externally. And we don't just make a move to leave externally. What we do is we figure out what would be worthwhile for us to leave our current job. And then we go ahead and prepare for that from what the role is, from working on the resume, redoing that, from working on the LinkedIn, redoing that, from positioning for your interviews and your pitch, from applications to networking. So that way, by the time your company figures out its stuff, and you're figuring out your stuff, you have a potential opportunity to leave as well as that exit plan if needed. And so that's what we talked about within that. But it's important to understand like where that is. I will talk about this from like a person. I have a client right now who is currently up for promotion in this month. We worked on the thing. She's been approved. There's been lots of feedback, but she just found out there's going to be a structural change within an organization. So we're figuring out and navigating like what will that look like for her? Does she end up staying or does she leave? So we're actually preparing a parallel pathing right now for her to apply for other roles as well. I've had another client in the past who she got a promotion internally. After years of being passed up, she got promoted internally. And then she realized that this isn't the company for me. And then we've prepared her to get another role. So that's always going to be a possibility for you. And then I'll talk about myself even briefly. There's an organization that I worked for. I absolutely loved, like adored, loved, respected their mission, their vision, the work that I got to do was absolutely like, it's still like one of my favorite experiences that I've had. But they weren't doing well financially. There was a part where they just were bleeding money and they just weren't going to be able to pay me what I need to be paid, let alone keep everyone hired. They were laying people off. Who knows if a merit increase is going to come up? Who knows what growth will look like? It'll potentially just look like just taking on more work, but not being compensated for. And so I had to sit and think for myself, okay, in this current season of my life, am I comfortable knowing that this is where my growth will be potentially capped when it comes to either finances or the trajectory of what it is I'm going to do, or is it time to make a move? So I had to look at that. And so a big thing that I have my clients do when they're applying for jobs is you should be doing recon on the organization, on the manager to see, are they financially stable? What is their stock prices are at? If they're not currently public, then it's going to see like, what is their leadership like? Are the articles out on it? Understanding that stuff, because you never want to go in from like one place that is having struggles to go and then roll into another one, right? And so we have to also vet them the same way they were vetting us in that process, which is super crucial as well. So that is what I say when it comes to, do I stay? Do I go? We always have a path for both. And the next question that I was asked was, I've taken on for years, my title and pay don't match. And when I asked, it backfired. Now what? Now, here's the thing. The questions that I will always ask will be, okay, when you ask, how did you ask? When did you ask? And how did that conversation go? Right? And when we say your title and your pay don't match, what would be the title that you feel would be reflective of the work that you're doing? Do you have let's market research for that. And what would be the pay that would match the work that you're doing? Do you have market research for that as well? And so we always want to ground it with data and not necessarily go off the emotion quickly, because that's how we build a business case. And so the first piece is, what would be the correct reflective title? What would be the correct reflective pay based off of the market, which I have exercises for that we do. And then on how it backfired, what were the touch points of the conversations you had? When were they? Who were they with? How did they go? And then that will let me know potentially where we need to still collect more information. Maybe there were maybe we weren't having super direct conversations. Maybe they're a little bit more passive, or we were just touching on them. We have to have a way to have more direct conversation, have more clarity. Maybe we didn't get a timeline. And so those are all the things to figure out. And the reason why I have folks do this internally, even before they go externally, is because leaving does not fix it. If you can't navigate this current system and organization on how to get clarity on what promotions are like, on how to get clarity on how to have your salary in alignment with the work that you're doing, how to get clarity on how to get your title in alignment with the work that you're doing, on how to have direct conversations and have understanding of the process, you going to another system, another organization will just follow you. These same things will just follow you there. And so it's really important to learn how to develop these skills internally in your current, even when you're moving to your next. You can still do both, but you still have to be able to exercise and learn those muscles, because if not, you're carrying those problems into the next organization. So the big part that we talked about was getting clarity on the timeline and what is right sized to the market and who approves it. So I asked, who approves these promotions in the sense of titles and salary? Okay, what is the timeline for it to happen once you've had that conversation? And then you have to follow up with the dog. You have to follow up like a dog with a bone. It is not like a one-time conversation that we have and then we let it pass. We have that conversation, we document, we continually follow up and check in with our progress repeatedly. And if then it still does not move, you leave from data, from the data that you've collected, not emotion. And also, you have learned how to do that for yourself, advocate for yourself, and get clarity for yourself. And if you're like, oh, I don't want to do all of that, that sounds like a lot of work. I wish they would just recognize the work that I do and they have a set process in place. Here's the thing is that like getting a promotion and moving up is not for the faint of heart. It's for somebody who's looking to be recognized for the work that they do. And sometimes, a lot of the times, don't just do that inherently. And the thing that I had talked about on the training was that to get a promotion, it's more than just your manager making that approval. It's also your boss's boss. Sometimes it's HR, sometimes it's finance. It has to make sense to the business. They're not going to just say, oh, hey, Susie Q, here's some more money because you've been doing a great job. No, they want it to make sense for the business. Hey, you have been driving revenue. You have been, having our go-to-market go so much faster. You have been having a great client retention. So we're going to give you some more money as an incentive to stay and continue to do that work, right? And so you have to make sure that you're showcasing that outside of your manager. The finance team has to make sure it's within the budget. They're going to break out how much money they're giving per department. Each department has going to figure out who's getting what merit increase, who's getting a salary increase. If you're getting a promotion, they have to figure out, are they going to backfill that role? Are they not? So there's so many more steps to it than just, hey, I'm doing the work. Is that enough? And so you have to understand the process, the timeline, who approves it, who's a part of it, and what has to happen in order to make it come to fruition. And so the other question that I was asked was, how do I check in on my promotion without being annoying, right? When my manager is drowning in so much work. So I actually had some current and past clients join the training as well, which is really fun to see them there. And so this question came from with some additional context of they have already had the conversation with their manager. We're going to promote you in this September cycle. You're on track to get promoted. Here are the things you have to execute and get done. But the part that was coming up was, she was a little bit nervous of, do I just wait now until September to see if it happens? My manager's like kind of drowning in fire drills and work. I don't want to take up more time. We're trying to cut back how many meetings we have. And so the reframe that I had offered was, from it's not I'm getting promoted. Hey, I'm not gonna set up this meeting with you. My recommendation was set up the meeting with your manager. But the recommendation was not in the sense of like we're just taking up time to take up time or just to keep asking every day, am I getting promoted? Not that she would do that. But the question was, hey, considering it like more of a progress check-in. I know we talked about that I'm on track to move to this next role in September, but I want to make sure that the things we have mapped out for the plan that I'm working towards, that I am doing what I need to do and it's looking good. So I think I'm doing really well in Here are the things that I'm still working towards. So again, you want to talk about how you're working towards your plan. What do you feel like is going well? And then what feedback you would like back from it. This shows momentum and it also invites input, and asking is free, as we said. And so here's the thing is that you don't want to get input from your manager at the review cycle. You want to get it before the review cycle with enough time to implement, right? Because if you're asking before and you're having these touch points, you're getting feedback, you're able to implement it. So by the time you get there, you can be like, yeah, I've been asking, you've been telling, I've been updating, I've been implementing, and here we are. So this is just something that can be so simple. It could be 15, 20 minutes, once a month before that happens. So that way you're having that checkpoint. If you have a regularly weekly scheduled meeting with your manager, You can have one of those meetings be a little bit longer, or you say, hey, for this one, can we also just do like a mini check-in on my progress and what I've been working on? Awesome. And then the last one I'm going to share of the questions that came up was, I'm starting a new remote role. I'm the first hire in a different city. How do I build relationships with people I rarely see? In the sense of, she wants to set herself up for success for the future, which is, I was like, so smart, so great. She's going to crush it. So knowing that if you're starting this new role and you're in a different city than your entire team, and you want to build and set up good relationships for future you, because ultimately they're going to be responsible for your future. The part that I said was, it's great when you have just started a new company, you have the best initial entry point of, I just joined and I'm setting up intro calls. Great. So your first intro call, what you want to do, since you just joined, you're going to set up these intro calls, make a list of everyone that you know you should talk to. And if you're unsure, you can always ask your manager too. And then what you want to do is you want to set up these intro calls. And the intention of it is, what do I say on this first call? The first call should be warm and easy. It should be who you are, what you're focused on in the company, and then learn about their role, and then ask what they either like need support wise, or how they see the two roles working together. Right? That way you have a good intel on just introducing yourself as a layup, easy layup. And then also you're going to talk about your role, what you're focused on. And then you're going to learn about them and what they're looking for support on, maybe what they're leading, and learn more about their role and how they see your roles working together. You take notes. Like this is you take notes. It's not like a fleeting conversation just to have a conversation. Take notes. And then I want you to tier them. Tier the people that you met in the sense of how frequently you want to follow up with them. Are you following up with some people weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly? And then you follow up. And then you say, hey, it's been a minute since we last spoke. I just want to reconnect and do a mini check-in. And then you set up a check-in. It can be 15, 20 minutes. It does not have to be a half hour. It doesn't have to be an hour. Just be really concise. And then you go ahead and you make sure you're doing those check-ins, and you'll keep in mind what they focus on, what they work on, and what projects they're on. So you can always do follow-up questions with tension of that. You are not wasting people's time. The only way you're wasting people's time is if you don't have a clear 2 to 3 points of what you're going to talk about on a call. So that's what we always talk about in coaching. I have clients who are setting up calls with like their CEOs, or setting up calls with their SVPs, and they'll be like, okay, Dani, can you help me brainstorm some topics to talk about? And I do that all day. I do that every single day. So we go ahead, whether it's in Slack or on a call, we brainstorm how to run those conversations with executives. That way you feel really confident to, one, set up the call, and two, execute it. If you don't have the relationships with the right people, then you're not going to move your stuff forward, is the thing. And so it's really, really important to be able to get comfortable with doing that. And again, if you want to be in a promotion, whether that's as an individual contributor, whether that is as a people leader, you're going to have to be able to be comfortable when it comes to speaking to different levels of seniority, right? And they're just people, but it is about figuring out that process, which we do within coaching. So I want you to notice how all of these questions came back to a very similar 3 themes that I coach on. The first is a promotion roadmap, promotion plan. And that's all about getting clarity on what it is that you're going for and figuring out the timeline. The other part that I always harp on is the leadership ecosystem. So making sure you have the right relationships with the right people, right? So are you just beholden to your manager, or do you have more exposure outside of that? You don't want one person being the keeper of the keys to your success. And then the third is strategic visibility. Like that positioning is really important. You don't want to just be over indexing for one person and only one person knows all of your projects. Is that person that you're doing all those projects for, that has visibility, that's giving you all that praise, are they going to move you forward, or are they not? And that's something to think about. So hard work is never the sole lever of your success. It's really about being strategic with your planning and your positioning of what it is that you do. So I taught this all in depth just yesterday. So if you're just hearing this right now, this episode before Friday, the 17th, I have the full replay at danitan.com. That's DANITAN.com/promotion-training-replay. And you can watch the replay up on the site until the end of day, Friday the 17th. And if you watch that replay and you are interested about coaching and you book a call by Friday the 17th, that's of July, you will then get the bonus that I talked about in the webinar. So in the webinar, I talked about a special bonus. If you book and have a call scheduled on my calendar by Friday, July the 17th, you get a momentum month, which means you get an additional month of coaching for free. So typically my coaching is $1,000 for 3 months. It has 6 sessions that are bi-weekly, as well as Slack support for voice notes, text, and documents for review, as well as call replays available. And so if you book and schedule your call by Friday, July the 17th, you actually get an additional month. So that means you're going to get 8 sessions for 4 months, and that will be for EK with payment plans available. Things to note is that you book that call on Friday, July 17th does not mean the call has to be for July the 17th. So you can book it for a future date. So you may book a discovery call for a future date. So it could be for next week, as long as you have scheduled it by July the 17th. So this bonus is just until Friday, just until tomorrow, if you're listening to this episode today. So just make sure that you take advantage of that. If you can't find a time that works for you on the calendar, you can email me at hello@danitan.com, HELLO DaniTan.com. And then just let me know, give me a couple times that work for you, and then we'll get you on the calendar. I had somebody who emailed me just this morning, and so we have them scheduled already for next week, and they're going to get the bonus as long as they sign on within 48 hours. So that's the thing. If you sign on within 48 hours of our call, the scheduled call that we have, then you get the momentum bonus of an additional month of coaching. Awesome. So just know that you are not behind, and it's just about being able to have the structure, the tools, and the playbook to make it happen. All of my clients, all of them, are extremely self-motivated, driven, ambitious. They're intelligent. They have multiple degrees. They're mothers. They're, single women crushing it in New York City, in San Francisco, LA, you name it. But the thing is that they know that by having a coach, it's going to help their results happen faster. And that's what they want. They want to be able to execute things faster. They don't want to have to be waiting, wondering, having unclear, ambiguous feedback. And they want it to make it happen for themselves. And so they choose themselves. And that's when we go into coaching. And I love it. So hopefully you got some good tidbits from this episode, and I will talk to you next week.